Tēnā koutou katoa. Me aho mihi ki ngā tangata o te whenua o Aotearoa, me ahitiria. Ko Richard Benge toko ingoa, kai whakahaere mātua o pūtanga toi ki Aotearoa, Arts Access Aotearoa. Greetings to everyone and my respects to the people of the land in my country, Aotearoa, and my former home of Australia. My name is Richard Benge, the Executive Director of Arts Access Aotearoa in New Zealand. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm really pleased to be introducing you today to three of the leaders in Aotearoa who've delivered excellent outcomes for prisoners through the arts and cultural programs in Arapotama Corrections. It's also great to know we're being joined by Chief Executive Jeremy Lightfoot and Neil Campbell, Partnerships Manager at Arapotama Corrections, and any other staff who are joining the kōrero today. I'm a Kiwi, but I had many years living in Australia, and I'm grateful to the Whitlam government for my free teaching degree from Rusden College in Melbourne many years ago when I trained in arts for youth, adults and communities that faced barriers to the arts, and that's influenced my whole profession. Today's conversation highlights the educational and rehabilitative role of the arts for men and women in prison and in the justice system. Our experience is that participation in arts and cultural opportunities increases literacy and numeracy, develops new skills, strengthens identity, and definitely improves attitudes. I'd like to talk about three areas of this work across New Zealand. The first quilting class at Aotearoa Arahata Women's Prison was held in 1993. And it's continued right up until today and is run by volunteers. The tutors understand that quilting is designing with fabric, and it involves arithmetic and math skills, learning measurements and calculations, but it's also highly creative. One prisoner commented that one of the main things she learned in the quilting class was patience. She also had to work out how to do things, problem solving, and how to fix her mistakes. Another woman in the quilt stitch group at Auckland Regional Women's Corrections Facility said, "I love making something to give to my family. I sewed from 9 in the morning until 7:30 at night." And another said, "Quilting gives us things to be proud of instead of things that are bad." Another area we're really proud of is creative writing programs. There are two strong creative writing groups working with men and women in prisons in Aotearoa. One is led by Zach Davey and Youth Arts New Zealand's Te Kahui Creative Writing Program. This is youth working for youth. Zach notices three key benefits for rangatahi, which is the Māori name for youth in New Zealand. They are developing a sense of ownership, cultivating empathy and facilitating dialogue, and encouraging self-empowerment to help maintain their well-being. Another group called, cleverly, Write Where You Are published writers and creative writing teachers at Arohata and Rimutaka prisons. Their tutor, William Brandt, says, "While we always stress that we are not therapists and have no training in that, we can feel like a therapeutic process and practice is underway in a non-destructive way of expressing feelings and working through issues. This is what participants in our creative writing classes often tell us they're experiencing." Another program is tikanga and building model marae at Hawke's Bay Regional Prison. Kyle Ellison is an offender employment instructor at Hawke's Bay Regional Prison. He teaches wood manufacturing that incorporates a te ao Māori worldview. The men taking his course gain practical carpentry and joinery skills by building model marae, which are the traditional Māori meeting houses and the associated buildings and the forecourt that you may have seen through film or through experiencing by visiting. Building these marae, the men learn the structure, the tikanga, the protocols, and the culture behind what a marae means and being on it and being belonging to one. Something most of the men have had little knowledge of. So this builds cultural knowledge and strengthens positive identity. So let's move on to our presentations and our speakers today. Our first speaker is Rue-Jade Morgan, and he lectures at Otago Polytechnic in Dunedin and facilitates the Te Hokai Mania Tipuna program at Otago Corrections Facility. Rue-Jade has experience of being a prisoner himself many years ago, and this deeply informs his service. His cultural and educational program aims to inspire the mostly Maori participants to make positive changes in their lives. Tēnā koe, Rue-Jade.
Tēnā roa to e te rangatira. Richard, thank you for that warm introduction. And of course, kia ora whānau. Lovely to see you all as well.
Kia ora e hoa. You once said it's a right, not a privilege, to have access to your culture. For men in Otago Corrections Facility, how does this access to their Māori culture and identity impact their learning? Would you share that with us?
Kia ora, Richard. I just wanted to pick up on that quote, that it's a right and not a privilege. Here in Aotearoa, we have the Human Rights Bill, 1993, and the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, 1990. So, I've also found that on the Human Rights Measurement Initiative .org website, that research has been conducted that there's quite a predominant demographic within our society who gets their rights denied to them on a daily basis. Prominently featured are Indigenous people, whānau people living with disabilities, and of course, people, detainees or accused of crimes. So in other words, prisoners. So with that being the case, it's essentially breaching their rights to weaponize culture and arts, to withhold that from them, and of course, robbing them of any chance of rehabilitation in a cultural sense, but of course to complement the criminogenic needs programs that are rolled out by the department, and that's very much needed also.
Can you expand on what access to cultural programs means for you and when you're working?
Thank you, Richard. Culture is, in a nutshell, about identity. It's about ways and customs of particular groupings of people. It's a means by which people can connect to community, to loved ones, and of course to a sense of themselves. I believe that a balanced and fresh approach is needed to help communities access authentic and genuine rehabilitation and paradigms and models that speak to them, not an imposed cultural lens that unfortunately has been used to attack Indigenous peoples worldwide. So culture is a voice, and culture is a valid way to help people heal and connect. And in the culture, Richard, we have a saying, ko te kai o te rangatira, ko te kōrero, which means the sustenance of leaders is dialogue or communication. However, that was shortened by whatever means and for whatever reason. And it goes on to say, engari, ko te rongoa o te tangata, ko te kōrero, which means, however, the medicine of people is to talk. So culture and the way that I've delivered it thus far has allowed the participants that I come across to have a voice, to be validated and to be heard, and then hopefully moving them along their path to rehabilitation and reintegration with our communities in a safe and positive manner.
Got it, Rue-Jade. That's a really important place to begin our kōrero today, knowing as we do that Arapotama Corrections has a hokai rangi strategy which embeds tikanga culture and the Māori worldview into the way corrections delivers all its services and includes all people, but particularly with a Māori lens, because there is a too large a representation of Māori within the prison population. So we're going to move to our next speaker now, Beth Hill. Beth is from Redemption Arts and Education Services in Northland, at the Northland Region Corrections Facility, which offers performing arts, creative writing, art history, painting, printmaking, sculpture, and graphic design. Prisoners find support and gain new skills on their pathway to rehabilitation and can also gain qualifications. Kia ora, Beth. My question to you today is, it's a big one, and it's, I'll see if you can deal with this, but how do your arts programs contribute to the education of the men that you work with?
Kia ora da, ko Beth Hill toko ingoa. Most school children spend around 11,000 hours in school. For most of the men who come to the art room, the number will have been significantly less. School was torture for them, and education system was not a safe, supportive and nurturing environment. So imagine then ending up back into that classroom environment again, whilst at the lowest point of their lives. Memories of fear and failure will often lead to unwillingness to participate, which then leads potentially to a punitive approach from case managers and custodial staff. It doesn't bode well for successful and productive relationships. The knowledge and skills that the Tāne have learned through school are fear of failure and how to avoid it, mistrust of figures of authority and how to isolate themselves from support, a cultural disconnection and a loss of self and how to practice denial. Sadly, expectation doesn't bring joy or fulfillment, only resentment and a sense of failure. So how do we all undo all of this in a prison environment? Primary and intermediate schools are bright, warm and productive environments conducive to learning. Prison classrooms are the opposite. And surely if we're to inspire, engage and support, we need to do better. I'm not saying that our facilitators and tutors and the people working on programs aren't doing a great job, but the environment that they're delivering their services in isn't suited to the purpose. Arts activities are often the first steps that some prisons take into activities and program opportunities presented in prison, seen as a constructive activity whilst awaiting education and rehab programs. These are supported by unit staff to get the men out of the unit and occupied. Creative and cultural programs can set the foundations for further education pathways to be built on. Our art room is a busy, welcoming, empathetic space and gives the Tāne, that's the men I work with, time out from the horror of the unit they live in. The skills needed to survive in jail are very different to the skills needed for learning. We encourage our Tāne to meet new people and build healthy relationships, reflect on their own stories and express them through a whole new visual language, engage with their culture and restore a sense of self, discover that failure is an integral part of the learning process and is to be celebrated as well as lamented, to love learning and share knowledge, and to create an autonomy that may not be found elsewhere in the prison. Inevitably, for many of our Tāne, their creative pathways are eventually interrupted by education and rehabilitation programs, but most will still choose to attend for an hour or two every day to unpack the knowledge they've gained on those programs, use the space therapeutically to calm down before they go back to the unit, and to share their skills that they've learned with their peers, which brings me to mentoring. Peer mentoring is a big part of our successful education stories at NRCF, and they are award-winning. Many of our Tuakana Taylor mentors at NRCF are recruited through the visual arts and performing arts programs. This speaks volumes to the benefits of creative interventions. Our mentors advocate for cultural, education and rehabilitation programs. They support their peers through unit activities, one-on-one tutoring and study groups. They say education starts in the home, and our students need vital whānau, and that's family, engagement and support. We provide as much access to family as is permitted. Family support is key to our Tane's further exploration and commitment to education. As educators, opportunities to meet whānau and get a better perspective on our students and whānau's needs encourages the Tane to stay on the path they have chosen, and also cements the foundations for possibilities with the whānau themselves. We as a society need to work harder at capturing the hard-won successes inside and ensure creative education and vocational programs are easily available on release and offer the same opportunities to the whānau waiting in the community. On average, the men I work with will be spending at least 50,000 hours in prison. If they are lucky, they could engage in arts and cultural activities for around 2,500 hours. The rest you can only hope are spent productively and therapeutically, and we all know they aren't. I say lucky because men and women have to negotiate to participate in arts and culture. Despite the positive results we see, these activities are still seen as a reward rather than a fundamental right or necessity. To support better educational engagement and reintegration success outcomes, we should not be relying just on time spent in a classroom or even qualifications gained. Every hour spent in prison and the environments that prisoners live and work in need to be suited to the challenges we are setting the men and women, so that they are released from us with little trauma as possible and with a sense of achievement and hope. In short, we need to make prisons more creative and harness the power of the arts and culture as a vehicle for change. To finish, I'd really like to acknowledge the whole team at NRCF and across the country who put in the hard work and care to supporting the men in our care. It's phenomenal. Kia kaha to you all.
Brother Beth. And in honour of your presence here today, the panel behind me, the painted head tiki panels, are from Northland Corrections facility. So that's a beautiful acknowledgement of your work in Northland. Thank you for being with us today. Our next presentation is by Kristie Mortimer, who's a dance educator with the Royal New Zealand Ballet. She has a PhD in dance studies and teaches dance in corrections facilities, something the ballet company has been doing for over 5 years. Kristie taught dance in Otago Corrections Facility and developed a resource about teaching dance in prisons. And when not in lockdown, like I know you are today, speaking to us from Auckland, Kristie, you teach a 30-week dance program at Auckland Region Women's Corrections Facility. So I'm going to cross to you now. Is there one comment from a participant that encapsulates why you personally teach dance in prisons?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a comment that always sticks with me, and it's from when I was teaching at the Otago Corrections Facility last year. And one of the men said to me, during this dance class, it felt like we were able to take off our masks and just be ourselves for a bit. And this comment for me, I think, really shows the value, especially in the context of corrections facilities, where men and women are having to navigate elements of control and confinement and various social dynamics and even their own identities, yet they could come into this space, which in this case was the gymnasium with a dance class happening inside of it, and engage in moving in their body in a positive way and do this collectively with others. And so this comment around taking off their figurative mask, I think, shows the potential of dance and being able to set up a safe and inclusive space for engaging in educational activities. And in these classes, majority of the men had never done dance before, yet by the end of the 8 weeks that I was with them, they had learned 2 different dance routines, and they were also participating in smaller groups doing creative activities, working with each other to play around with movement and space and different formations. But they weren't just dancing. The men were developing their communication skills. There was teamwork and group cooperation through dance. And this is why myself and the team at the Royal New Zealand Ballet are so committed to delivering and developing our programs in corrections facilities, because we're able to use dance and creativity as a vehicle for developing life skills and educational benefits. Another example is our recent project at Arohata Women's Prison. Myself and the education manager at Royal New Zealand Ballet, Pascal, we spent 13 weeks working with women towards a public matariki performance to celebrate the Maori New Year. And for this project, we worked with the women in the drug treatment unit. So the program was part of their rehabilitation program, and it was voluntary for them to participate. But if they chose to participate, they had to be committed to the whole program as well as the performance. And so we ended up with a group who performed 2 dances, and I tried to be really collaborative in the way that the classes were delivered. So the women helped to choose the music, they made creative decisions around the movement and decorated and modified their own costumes. And during the project, the women attended every single session, unless there was a good reason for them not to, like another appointment. And they really developed a strong level of commitment, as well as interpersonal skills and discipline, which we saw through aspects of the classes, like knowing when to contribute to the conversation or when to step back and hear other people's ideas. And so through this collaborative learning process, we found the women becoming very confident and comfortable, but by the end, there was a real sense of ownership and accomplishment. And then, as you mentioned, our most recent project is our 30-week project, which we're running at Auckland Region Women's Corrections Facility. This is a really exciting project because we are going to be able to offer NCA credits, which is the school qualification in Aotearoa. So we have been working with a dance teacher named Trudy Dobby, who's been working closely with New Zealand Qualifications Authority and Te Kura to do a lot of the background work to make this possible within a corrections facility context. And through this, the women will be assessed on being able to confidently recall the movement, as well as their concentration skills and timing and appropriate posture. So during the dance classes, while the women are learning dance, they're focusing on counting to the music, on how they hold their bodies, or on personal discipline when participating in the class with others. And as well as this, the women will be able to have a very tangible education outcome through achieving NCA credits through their participation in dance. So we're currently trialling in Auckland, and we're hoping that we can expand it throughout Aotearoa. Fortunately, as you mentioned, our Auckland classes are on hold due to the COVID-19 lockdown. But delivering our programs and corrections facility is part of our strategic goal for the company. So we're trying to find innovative ways to still keep delivering dance while we're in this space in lockdown. We're hoping that we can offer the resource which can be printed and given out so the women can keep moving and learning. And we're hoping that we can also look at broadcasting some of our performances on the prison TV and corrections facilities. But overall, we find that there are many educational benefits that come from engaging in dance classes and creativity, like communication skills, commitment, group cooperation, concentration. Again, we can use dance and creativity as a vehicle to foster life skills, but also numeracy and literacy skills through counting with the music and communicating ideas. And this is why we're so passionate about teaching dance and corrections, is because these skills and educational benefits can be carried through to other aspects of the men's and women's lives, like participation in other rehabilitation programs, as well as the workplace or just life in general. And through dance and creativity, yet we can provide meaningful and positive educational experiences for those in corrections.
Kia ora, Kristie, that's quite a lot you've been covering, and just the educational benefits from getting up and moving and being in a class with others is so beneficial. I think our 3 speakers, Kristie and Beth and Rue-Jade, you've been covering so many aspects of the educational benefits of engaging with creativity that very quickly gets to a person's heart. We talked about the masks being lifted if our culture can surround us and if the system around us enables the time and the safe space to engage in the arts. So that's what we at Arts Access Aotearoa continually advocate for, because we see the results. And I want to thank very sincerely our 3 speakers today who are the great leaders in arts delivery in corrections in New Zealand. By concluding, we can say that we'd like to share with you more information, and we can best do that online. Our information is available on your screen. Our website is there for you. Please email us if you have any questions. Thank you very much for including us in your conference. It's been an honour for Arts Access to participate with our colleagues. And we're going to leave you with this video of women who had participated in the Royal New Zealand Ballet workshops, and they were performing in Arahata Prison's Matariki concert in August earlier this year. Matua tēnā koe.